toasting, joking too. Sipping and roasting is what we do. Light 'em up, drink 'em down. Whiskey and cigars all around. Cheers, y'all.
Sounds like a party, ladies and
Welcome,
gentlemen.
ladies and gentlemen, to this fine radio program, podcast, and video extravaganza, known internationally as the world-famous Smokin' and Toastin'. Welcome to episode number 315. That's 315, which puts us at the mark of being exactly
halfway to 333.
Very excited about it.
That's going to be a fun show.
That one's going to be a party. We're looking forward
to that.
Yep. 313, we invite everyone who's ever been on the show. And, of course, everyone won't be able to make it, but generally speaking, a lot of people will. And we'll all get together and do a show that goes on way too long and means that we'll need a lot of Ubers.
Yes.
Basically. It'll be
Make sure your Uber account is updated.
Quite a blast. Our guest today is Shawn Hanrahan. He's with Platypus Brewing Company. Welcome to the program, Shawn.
Thank you, boys. Thanks for having me.
It is always a pleasure to have you on. I am a big fan of your beer, and so I'm excited we get to drink some of it and talk about it here on the program today. We got all kinds of stuff going on, but first I want to say a big thank you to the Briar Shop in Houston's Rice Village. They were our hosts last week for the On Location show where we did the pipe show, and it was great fun. Those guys really know their pipes, and once a year we try to do a pipe show just to try to mix it up a little bit, and they were awesome, and they were quite good to us. We'll be sampling Platypus beers today on the program, and we'll also be doing a little whiskey tasting. I brought along some Hatozaki small batch Japanese whiskey.
I see that.
Yeah, so that's
I haven't
that's gonna
tried
be
that one.
That's going to be very interesting. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So, we'll also talk about some interesting things that are going on in the world of spirits and cigars and craft beer, including a new study that points out that whiskey is actually good for you.
I like that.
We have to celebrate these things when they come out because we're constantly barraged with the negative, right? Drinking is bad for you, and of course, we're not trying to say that it's not, but sometimes something comes out that points out there's some positive as well, and I believe that has to be celebrated. I really do. So we'll get to that. We'll get to our very popular segment here on the program that we like to call Drinking News. This is where we bring you a story from the news that is at least reported to be true. We don't make them up. We don't take them from obvious parody sources. But these stories are sometimes, not always, about drinking. But they are always best listened to when you've been drinking. And by the time we get to it, we will have been drinking. So looking forward to that. Today's Drinking News teaser headline: Please stand by for a message from the president. And so we'll explain all of that and have all of that coming up. I want to talk a little bit about this last weekend, of course, was the big NFL game whose name shall not be mentioned for fear of having to write a check and send it to the NFL. But one of the big things about the game is that people are always watching for the commercials. And there were a number of commercials for beer. And I thought several of them were interesting enough to comment on. One or two I'd seen before, but there were several. Right. I wanted to comment. The Anheuser-Busch Corporation has just completely given up on trying to convince anyone of any reason to drink their beers that has to do with the way that it tastes. They've just thrown in the towel on it.
They don't even bother selling the liquid anymore.
They don't even
it's
try.
all about the packaging.
Yeah, it's all about easy to drink, easy to enjoy. That's the Michelob Ultra.
To enjoy.
That's the Michelob Ultra slogan. Easy to drink, easy to enjoy.
You don't even have to think to enjoy it.
Right. Right. You don't even have to. It's just mindless.
As a matter of fact, you don't even have to think.
It's just mindless beer water. It's what it is. It's for those who, I suppose that's why it's easy, right? Because it isn't actually beer. And then it was a very interesting beer commercial from Miller Coors.
Oh, yes, that one.
And it was Miller Lite versus Coors Light. And it was supposed to be, you were like, I remember watching it thinking, what's going on? And in the end, it
whose
turns out.
commercial is this
Right,
one?
whose
Yes.
commercial is this? And in the end, it turns out it was actually a commercial for Blue Moon. Only thing is, Miller, Coors, and Blue Moon are all owned by the
They're
Miller
all the
Coors
same
company.
thing, yes.
But I think, to the people who don't know that, I would think that would have been wildly confusing.
Right.
You know, and what did Blue Moon have to do with any of it? It was just, I don't know. It's just literally, and I realized that craft beer, even the bigger craft beers like, Sam Adams or Sierra Nevada, they don't have the dollars it's going to take to buy an ad in the Super Bowl. But if you watched those beer ads, it kind of leads you to why people are drinking seltzers and other stuff. Like why would you? Why would you drink that? It's just, I remember back in the old days, Budweiser, all the ads were the king of beers, right?
Uh-huh.
And Miller Lite tastes great, less filling. They were at least trying to sell you on the beer.
They had to go with truth in advertising on that one, so they had to stop doing the whole taste great thing.
They had to stick Miller Lite, less filling.
Less filling.
That's it.
And now
Thank
they
you.
got Michelob Ultra for that.
Yeah. Oh man. So
I watched a great
easy to drink, easy to enjoy.
I watched a great vlog. It was an English gentleman tasting American macro brews. He was blind tasting them. When he got to the Michelob Ultra, he was just so confused. It was hilarious. I'll have to see if I can find that.
That would be
vlog,
good. We'll have to share that. That's wonderful. Well, and you remember when we did our light beer blind taste test? What was the one? The Bud Light Lime or
Bud
whatever?
Light Lime. We all thought it tasted like Lemon Pledge, but I voted for it because it was the only one that had flavor. It may not have been good flavor,
It was
but it
furniture
had some.
polish flavor, but at least it had some. You're 100% right. So, well, hopefully today we'll have some beers that aren't so easy to drink, but I'm betting they'll be easy to enjoy.
There we go. There we go. So
I'm just-
wonderful little segue there.
Yeah, but I mean, seriously, it's like, imagine if there could have been an ad, like if somehow the NFL had been forced to gift an advertisement to, a winner of some sort of beer competition, and a craft beer was in there. Think how great that would have been to see something like that.
You could just
in the Super Bowl.
actually show a person having that beer and enjoying it, drinking it.
Like, wow, this is really good. The flavors.
They wouldn't even have to say anything.
The flavors. Yeah, that would have been.
It'd just be a silent commercial, just like the smile and the.
It's kind of like car. it's kind of like car commercials. They're no longer about the car. They're about somebody driving through the mountains or whatever.
That electric Chevy electric vehicle commercial.
Yeah.
Where they're going to be featured in a bunch of Netflix things. What does it tell me anything about your vehicle?
Oh, great.
That makes me want to buy your vehicle.
Exactly. So, these are the situations we find ourselves in.
Although
in
the electrical
media.
dysfunction one, the Ram one was pretty funny.
Yeah, there were a few good ones. Overall, I thought
funny.
in general the commercials were just about as disappointing as the outcome of the game. That was how I felt about it.
Oh
So,
man, how did you feel about the halftime show?
well, I'll say this: at least the United States military was able to put that Chinese weather balloon they shot down to good use, because I'm pretty sure Rihanna was wearing it.
Oh, there you go.
I think they dyed it red, that's what she was
that
wearing.
was lame. I actually was dozing. I had to stand up and go
like
stretch
Rihanna.
and go get a beer.
I
was
like Rihanna,
this is...
but that was pretty awful.
Cause you know what it seemed to me.
Sorry,
it seemed
just
like
was.
it seemed like that Rihanna was like, it's cooler than 20 people dancing. 120.
And those dancers were like hoofing it. Rihanna barely moved, but the dancers were they were jumping and swinging their arms up and down. I mean, it was.
Well, the big question that came
calisthenics.
from that is Rihanna pregnant?
Oh, she obviously is.
Has to be, yeah.
She has to be.
Did they answer that finally?
Yeah. Yes, I did. Yeah.
There is a great meme on the internet of Elmo from Sesame Street, and he's singing the "Better Have My Money" song, and he's just kind of barely moving the way Rihanna was it's pretty good. Look up Elmo Rihanna and you'll find it. So.
And then the whole moment where she turns around and grabs her ass, I was like, oh, come on.
Yeah.
It's not working.
Yeah, no, it's really, really, really.
You know
not.
what, though? Let me go ahead and say Rihanna probably makes more money than I do, so good on you, girl.
Well, she's
Go.
gonna make a lot of money today because her stuff's going through the roof on streaming media and all that kind of stuff. So it'll be big. So I had an interesting cigar during the Super Bowl, but that's not the one I'm going to talk about. I'm talk about a different one today because I've already talked about the one I had during the Super Bowl. But I was wondering if you had an opportunity to smoke anything interesting.
I did. I actually went by Casa today and picked out a cigar that I don't think I'd talked about before. I think it slipped under my radar recently, and I just hadn't talked about it. It was the Rocky Patel Edge 20th anniversary.
Ah, the 20th anniversary. Nice.
And I don't remember why it was on my mind. Did you talk about it
I think
recently?
we mentioned that it was coming out back a while back.
That was a while back, right. Yeah. So I picked one up. I picked up the Robusto 5.5 by 50 ring gauge. It's constructed of a 10-year aged Ecuadorian Sumatra wrapper. The binder and filler were Nicaraguan and Honduran. That's pretty much all the information I got. Even on the Rocky Patel website, they're like, it's just this stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, there was never a lot of information about Edge when it first came out.
This Edge has 2 bands.
That's a big deal.
Instead of one.
The original Edge didn't have
Just
any
had the
bands,
footer, right?
and then it just had a footer. Yeah.
So this had the footer on it and just said 20th anniversary, and it had this really beautiful Edge band. In a traditional place. It was a pretty large band. Probably between the band and the footer, it covered probably a third to almost a half of the cigar.
So that's a change for the Edge. Yeah.
That is a change, and it's a real beautiful cigar. I mean, the wrapper on this is this ruddy dark brown, like just kind of dark brown reddish thing, silky smooth and oily, like shiny oily. It was absolutely gorgeous with a firm feel overall. The pre-light sniff on this had fermented hay, rich leather, and light notes of coffee. The pre-light draw, I used a punch on this. I have this beautiful punch on my, I have this beautiful punch on my keychain now that someone gave me. I used a punch. I had a medium draw on it. It had rich, tangy leather notes, slightly fruity, and some light coffee notes coming out of the pre-light draw. The initial light, bright, punchy citrus and pepper spice. Tangy leather, the retrohale spicy pepper and leather right off the bat. The first third, I will tell you, if you get this cigar and you light it, it is big when you light it. Like, you know how you get the pepper blast?
Yep.
This was big and almost to the point of harsh, but I kind of like the bigger flavors.
It was like big tobacco, basically.
Big tobacco when you light it. Now, it did settle down a little bit. The first third of this came into leather and spices, including black pepper, cayenne, cinnamon, a little cardamom kind of flavor on that. And I don't know why cardamom popped in my head, but I'm assuming that's what I was tasting because that's what popped in my head. So if I'm making that up, well, sorry. And cardamom, all on a citrus background. The retrohale is peppery with oak and mocha. Solid ash, good burn. The second third of this cigar, moving on, leather and spices settle in and remain constant while a bit of mocha sneaks in. I got a little mocha on the retrohale on the first third, but it didn't really have the flavor of it in the cigar, but it kind of snuck in a really pleasant way. Oak and citrus are always present and a bit of toast weaves in and out. The retrohale is peppery with mocha and oak. Solid ash, great burn. The last third of the cigar, tangy leather and cayenne kind of stay up front while mocha becomes more prevalent. A hint of coffee shows up and pairs well with the pepper and toasty notes. Citrus and oak remain constant. Retrohale is sweet mocha, oak, and coffee. So one of the fun things about this is that mocha kept getting more in there. And the cigar actually got sweeter. Still stayed peppery. I mean, it's still a big cigar. If you're a light to medium guy, don't buy this. This is on the big side. This is definitely at least in full. The solid ash, great burn all the way through. It wasn't razor tight, but it was a great burn all the way through. This cigar cost me $11 for Robusto. I really enjoyed the flavor profile. I'll give it a solid 5.
Nice.
Nothing down about that. I think it's on par with what you'd expect to spend $11 on.
Sounds to me like it was a little more nuanced than what I remember. I used to smoke the Edge a lot when it first came out, and I didn't remember. I loved the flavor, but it didn't change and morph as much as what you're describing.
It was a bit of a one-trick pony. It was also one of the more budget level cigars too. But it was a good thing that it did. Like it did that one. It's like a hammer. It just did one job.
But it did it well. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I picked up one I hadn't tried before when we were at the Briar Shop last week. It's the Micallef Herencia Habano Torpedo. a 5.5 by 52 beauty that's box pressed, sports a chocolate brown Habano wrapper from Nicaragua while using an Ecuadorian Sumatra binder and filler tobacco from Nicaragua and Honduras. The Herencia Habano is said to embody the heritage of the Gomez Sanchez family, which I think is tobacco growers and rollers going back a number of generations. The Micallef website talks about their creative use of the Habano leaf, which is the wrapper they use in this, as being evidence across the line, and describes this cigar as where it all kind of like really comes together. So some floral notes and tea leaf were evident for the pre-light sniff, and I got pretty much the same on the cold draw once I snipped the cap with my cigar scissors. Also a dank but very nice subtle note of earth or maybe even mushrooms. You know that
Right,
where it can be
yeah.
kind of hard to tell which. I used my torch to light it up, and while there was no Nicaraguan pepper blast, just like there's no Nicaraguan pepper blast song,
I'm
but
feeling
maybe
some suggestions
one
here.
day. Anyway, there was no Nicaraguan pepper blast at all, but there was a nice hit of flavor, really on the very first few puffs. Cedar was the first thing on the palate, followed by a graham cracker note and a hint of citrus zest, a very gentle white pepper note on the retrohale. I was expecting the construction to be really good on this cigar, but it started to canoe almost immediately.
Oh, no.
And so that's when one side burns a lot faster than the other, as you'll see in this. We're going to need a bigger boat. As you see in the photo here, you see where the canoe starts, and I let it go for about an inch to see if it would correct itself, and alas, had no such luck. So I flicked the ash off, which was very flaky, by the way, and set about doing my best to correct it with the lighter, realizing that this would kind of be make or break for this cigar. It burned a little hot for a few minutes after the touch-up, kind of obliterating the flavors that I had been picking up, and I tried to remain patient. Patience, as my wife will tell you, not a particularly good strength for me. But that's one of the reasons that I love cigars so much, because they help me kind of sit down and relax. As you always say, you can't hurry up and smoke a cigar. But having to constantly tend one, though, doesn't help put you in that space, right? Once the harshness from my attempt to correct the burn kind of faded, second third of the Herencia Habano continued with the cedar, added a hint of baked bread, and the return of the floral notes that I had gotten a little hint of on the pre-light. Unfortunately, the canoeing continued and even got worse in the second third, as you'll see here, forcing me to hit it with the lighter again and endure the harshness of a relight penalty.
Oh.
At 5.5 inches long, I now had to wait for the harshness from attempting to correct the flame to dissipate twice, and this was not looking good. The flavors at the halfway point, once the Herencia Habano calmed down again, were really quite good. More savory notes joined in as I got closer to the final third, toasted nuts, a bit of saltiness, and the complexity didn't stop it from having a nice creaminess on the finish. Either the cigar finally decided to cooperate, or I did a better job with the second touch-up, because it finally started burning a little more evenly. Final third was by far the most enjoyable part of the cigar once the burn started to behave. So I really enjoyed parts of this cigar. The flavor blends and complexity were excellent when they weren't being masked by the harshness of that additional flame.
Right.
It was almost like a relight penalty, even though the cigar never actually went out. I'm seriously hoping these burn issues were just this particular stick. I have a feeling it's not something that's rampant within this line of cigars, because I think you'd hear about it or read about it if it were, right? But I would have been extremely pleased with this if it hadn't been for having to touch it up and then endure. Not that touching up bothered me so much, it was the harshness that came after, which doesn't happen with every cigar, by the way, but in this case it did. The Micallef Herencia Habano Torpedo is an $11 to $12 smoke. And this particular one was not worth it, although I suspect that with the construction issues, without the construction issues, I probably would have thought that it was. I will totally try this cigar again in hopes that it was a one-off problem. So I'll recommend it in hopes of that. But my experience with this one, price to quality, have to give it a 4. It is a wonderfully complex cigar with great flavors, but if you don't get to enjoy them for like a third of the
Yeah,
cigar
if
for
you're
the
so distracted
right.
from it.
And it wasn't like $6. It was twice that. Right. So there's my thought. Price to quality, as you guys know, it's a 1 to 10 scale, but 5 means you get exactly what you paid for. So I felt like I overpaid on this one a lot, but I will smoke another one. We'll see what happens. All right, we got to take a break because when we come back, it's beer sampling time, and the beer in question is from Platypus Brewing Company here in our hometown
This
of Houston.
is a questionable animal, too.
Yes, a very questionable animal. We'll be right back. Nice. Welcome back. It's Smoking and Toasting, where we do all of our own sound effects, and we love it that way. It is a program all about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars. Craft beer will be the subject here immediately as we welcome back on the show Shawn Hanrahan with Platypus Brewing Company. Shawn, let's get this out of the way first. Where are you from?
Place called Brisbane, so it's about halfway up on the east coast. So it's
and
nice
is
and tropical.
Brisbane the second largest city in Australia after Sydney, or
No, that'd be Sydney, Melbourne, then Brisbane.
okay, all right.
Yeah, so-
Melbourne is in, okay, gotcha. And what brought you to the United States?
Oh, look, very originally, back in the early days, was oil and gas, a bit like everyone else.
Sure, yeah,
and
especially in this part of the country, right?
Especially in this part of the country. So I worked for a very large mining and oil and gas company, Australian company, and was sent over here as a young fella and cut my teeth, as they say, in the oil and gas industry. And then my lovely wife is from Houston. So we were married, went back to Australia, and then made a decision back in about 2013 to move back. Okay. And in 2015 we arrived. And midlife crisis later, Platypus was born in 2016.
So this really is one of those breweries that stemmed from, I just don't want to do this other job anymore. I want to make beer, right?
Well, it's interesting. It's a bit of a mix of all of that. So we, Rachna, my wife and I, were looking to do this in Brisbane.
It's interesting. Now, I want to come back to that because I want to ask you about the craft beer scene in Australia.
Sure.
But we are fortunate that you decided to do it here because I don't get to Australia all that often. So
yes, unfortunately, I don't either. Well, I'm heading back shortly, but we bought it here, and for the fortunes of life, we made a family decision to move back this way, and so we put our brewery plans on hold. We moved here in 2015, and then I had this feasibility study that I'd done in Brisbane. Looked at the craft brew scene in 2015 in Houston and went, hang on, there's a gap here. I think there's a gap. So, and we already have this plan ready to go. So, 9 months, 8 months later, we had a lease and away we went.
So this wasn't one where you were already brewing it in the garage or the basement and then moved it out to a location. You basically said, I'm going to start a brewery, and you got a space and started a brewery. Is that right?
Correct, yeah. And hired a good professional brewer from California. She came out and helped me with some of that formulation. I mean, we knew some of the flavours and so forth that we wanted to shoot for and use some Australian ingredients. But in terms of all of that and the restaurant and everything that went with it, that was our original vision. That's what we wanted to do, and we went and grabbed it.
We're about to try something that I won't say near as awesome as you will, but this is the Bobby Dazzler. I'll let you say it.
Well,
once.
yeah, I was going to say, please have him say it because the accent
better.
Makes it in this particular beer.
It's the Bobby Dazzler.
There it is.
There we go.
There it is.
So what is a Bobby Dazzler? Because that's an Australian term, right?
Yeah, well, actually, it's probably more of an English term that Australia has adopted, and it's more of a Bobby Dazzler. It's an older term now, but if you had a nice coat or you look nice, you look like a Bobby Dazzler. It's just something that was nice and shiny and well put together.
Like Rihanna on the halftime show in the Super Bowl. She was a Bobby Dazzler.
She was. And that tent she was
Shining
wearing.
bright
We're
like
going to
a
put you
Bobby
in
Dazzler.
red, and then we're going to put a red background. No one's going to notice you at all.
Yeah, exactly. Which I think may have been what she was going for. But I digress. So this is a blonde ale, is that correct?
Yeah, so it's a blonde ale, brewed with some Australian hops, Topaz in this. This is just the nice, easy... It's different from an American blonde ale, and that just has a little bit more flavour. So if you're used to some of the blonde ales that we've had around here, great, good mouthfeel, quench the thirst in the middle of a July, August in Houston. Definitely hits the mark. What we wanted to do was have a little bit more sort of Aussie flavour in this, and have a not for the alcohol, because it's still only 4.7% alcohol, so it's easy to drink from a craft beer perspective.
Is it easy to enjoy?
Absolutely.
Okay,
easy
So
to
it's easy
enjoy.
to drink and easy to enjoy. But unlike other products you may have heard about with that slogan, this actually has flavor to it.
So this
That's
blonde ale,
right.
like what I noticed from this versus other blonde ales, you said it's different, is I noticed the fruit notes right up front.
Yes.
There's
Because I think of blonde ales as being more of a wheat profile.
or sometimes a light malty kind
Right.
of thing going on right up front, which I enjoy. But the fruit comes up front with the malt on this, and that's the biggest difference. And then there's a really nice crisp finish to it that polishes off nicely. Also, it's not hugely carbonated, I noticed.
No, it's just easy on the palate.
Yeah,
so,
it's
and
easy
we
to drink.
We do put some local honey in this as well, just to give
Oh
it a
yeah,
nice,
I can
nice balance.
detect that. Yes, absolutely. And you mentioned that you used an Australian hop. What was the name of that hop again?
Topaz for this one.
Topaz. So is that something that, I mean, is that difficult for you to get it shipped all the way here? Does that wind up being more expensive than if you used, Citra or Simcoe or something else?
Yeah, well, in terms of the Citra and Simcoe or some of the other US hops that you have, which we do use in other beers, they're magnificent. We needed an Aussie brand on this, and there are some good distributors up in the northwest who we can grab our Aussie hops.
Bring it
through.
into the country and then you can get it. That's good.
In terms of price points, yeah, they're probably priced a little bit more as you would anticipate for an import. But we just feel that that's it's really quintessential to our brand to have that point of difference.
Gives it its character. Yeah, for sure.
I like your slogan on here, says brewed with Texan heart and Australian soul.
I like it.
Absolutely,
I
yeah,
like it.
and it's a nice blend of who we are. So my wife being sort of brought up in Texas, and me being the Aussie, of course, it's a nice combination.
So talk to us about the platypus. This is your thing. This is your brand. It's your image. It's also the weirdest animal on the
It's
planet.
a bizarre critter. that's
Really,
for
it is.
sure.
What made you choose that? First of all, are platypi? Is it platypi? Is that the plural?
it's actually platypuses.
Platypuses. So are
Yeah,
platypuses?
that's not what I was going to say, but okay.
Are platypuses? Are they in Australia? Is that where they originated, or we don't know where they originated? God only knows what happened. But can you find them in Australia? Is that a thing?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, few and far between, and very much endangered with lifestyle and urban creep. However, they are indigenous to Australia, and that's generally
They're
the only place
indigenous,
only place you'll find them. So, the Australian government's quite protective of having them outside the country. I do believe there's one in San Diego or something, but you won't find too many zoos around the world where the platypus is imported. So they keep it very much in the backyard.
Yeah, very much so.
Right.
It's just such an interesting animal because it defies all the rules of species, right?
Very much so. Yeah.
And so it's fascinating. But I love it because right away, as using this as your symbol, as your brand, you're saying, yeah, we're going to be a little different than some of the other craft beers. I think that's I think that's really cool. Was
That's
Bobby
it.
Dazzler your first beer that you brewed?
Yes, it was one of the first that we had on our original sheet. So and it's really it was a new beer for Houston, really, because it had a little bit more flavour than Houstonians were used to. But we stuck with it. We figured this is what we wanted to do. Aussies in Houston love it. They
cool.
gravitate towards it. They go,
Is
it
there a-
reminds me of home.
Is there a big Australian community in Houston?
There is quite large, especially with oil and gas, but also some in the medical as well. So
Fascinating.
Yeah, we're everywhere, man. We're everywhere.
I have been to your location. In fact, had a birthday party there.
Yeah,
that my
that was a
wife threw. That we had a wonderful time. Great food, great beer, obviously. But back then, I don't recall seeing you as much in local stores. Now I see your cans not only obviously at Specs and Total Wine and places like that, but they're also in my little Phoenicia store downstairs in my building, and even in some of the grocery stores. How difficult was that for you guys to bring that about? Did you find that the stores were interested in stocking you? Were they interested in having more diversity and different brands, or is it something
gotta
you
fight
really
for
had to
their
fight
shelf
for?
spaces.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's right. And look, some of the look, it wasn't. I wouldn't say it was overly difficult. They're very interested in the brand because it's a unique brand and it's local, and everyone was or still is hyper local in terms of craft beer. But going into that distribution game, do it with your eyes open. These are large organisations that expect it done in a certain way, and they all have their own separate and very different ways of doing it. So you need to have your organisation set up to be able to satisfy that as well. So whether it's a Whole Foods, a Specs, Total Wine, HEB, Kroger's, and whomever else. So it's you must ensure that you're managing that properly and have the right organisation for that.
And did you guys see a jump in sales when you started showing up more in, let's say, the grocery stores and stuff, as opposed to just when you're selling it at the brewery and in the beer and wine stores?
Yeah, definitely. In terms of the distribution, we did see a jump. Of course, truncated a little bit by 2020 and 2021.
Sure,
and the
right,
events
right.
there.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting one. The old black swan economic theory comes in there. But we are seeing certainly a lot of brand recognition around town.
That's cool.
And that's what that's
Did
obviously
you guys,
what we're looking for.
when the lockdown happened in 2020, did you end up selling a lot of beer out the door, so to speak?
Well, it was
A lot
interesting.
of places were doing that.
They were, but because we had the restaurant, we were able to stay open.
Right,
I didn't even
yeah.
think about that. Yeah, you guys got a great restaurant there.
Thank
too.
you very much. Yeah, and we didn't have to go and scramble and get a food license. And,
So you guys,
Right.
you guys have a full-on like real deal restaurant. This is not like pub food.
Right. It's not like chips and a can of Fritos
Right.
cheese. You know what I'm talking
Here's
about?
a
The Fritos
warmed
cheese
up
stuff. Yeah.
pretzel.
Yeah, right.
That's right.
Yeah, no, it really is. Your food is very good there too.
Thank you.
I was wondering how you view as time has gone by, and especially in the time since lockdown, the lockdown portion of COVID, it seems like things are becoming, in terms of craft beer, much more and more and more hyper local. People, in fact, it's even feels like in some cases it's down to neighborhoods now. Like people are more supportive of the craft breweries in their own neighborhood, and if you don't live in the Heights, you don't go to the ones in the Heights as much, or whatever. Do you see that from your perspective, and do you think it's a good thing for the craft beer industry overall, or do you think this fascination with what's brand new, what's hyper local, does it detract from craft beer in any way?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question with a lot of elements. In terms of, do we see a lot of hyper local? Absolutely, we do. There's some great neighbourhood pubs around in Houston now that are craft breweries, and they're certainly always geared to that level. We've always taken a different approach. Yes, we're a craft brewery, but as important, we're a restaurant, and we were just mentioning before, we actually have liquor, a full bar as well now. So we've always been about the diversification. So to provide, certainly in a foodie city, a number of different elements to the experience.
And that distinguishes you because where you're located too, you have Holler Brewing is right around the corner. You have Buffalo Bayou is right around the corner.
That's correct. Yes.
And you got some steep competition there. But you kind of have a nice niche there because Holler has no food that I know of.
Not on. They might have it brought on site.
Yeah,
but I
yeah,
don't think
a
they have
food
kitchen.
truck or whatever. Buff Brew as they call it, Buffalo Bayou, is now a big, giant thing with its own restaurant and stuff. And you guys are kind of fitting like that nice little. I don't want to be that busy, but I do want some food. And you got a great restaurant on top of that. It's a nice little spot to be, I think.
Yeah, thanks very much. And as I said, adding the liquor on in 2021, I think we added that. We just added another dimension to the experience. So we don't deliberately go out and do things first in Texas, but unfortunately, for some reason, it keeps happening, and we sort of scratch our head and go, how? Whether it was wine or now liquor, but that's where it is. We've geared our business to be that way.
You guys had been doing wine before, right?
We did wine from the get-go.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, it was always part of our vision. So
One of the things I've noticed about you guys is that you're not one of those breweries that's constantly got something new and then something new again next week, you really seem to have stayed more to kind of like your flagship brands. Is that by design? Is it something? What do you think about the breweries that are constantly putting out something new and then 6 weeks later you can't find it?
Oh, I personally love it. I mean,
Yeah?
you know, I've got a good friend of mine who owns a brewery up in Portland, and it's exactly what he does. He has small batch brewing, and it's fantastic. It's just a whole different experience each time I go. For us, we have larger tanks and geared a bit differently to that. You know, we still have we might have 13 beers on tap at the moment, and some new stuff coming back, and then. You know, we just each quarter we will have some new styles coming through.
And out of your 13, how many make it into stores?
Oh, great question. Look, we've pared it back to simplify, and so we have two that will be in the stores all year. That'll be the Bobby Dazzler, and the next one that we'll taste, which is the Mexican Lager, and then we'll change out each quarter a specialty.
Third beer.
That's right.
Yeah,
So 3 beers really at any one point in time.
Does that make it easier for you to compete for shelf space, that you're not asking for 16 SKUs or
Exactly right, and that's exactly what we did last year. Just simplified, and this is our niche. This is what we want to do. We're not necessarily competing with all these guys. For us, it's brand awareness that simplifies our business and makes it very pointed. And this is after consultation as well with our customers as to what they want to see and what works for them as well.
Well, I will tell you, the Bobby Dazzler is wonderful. This is not only unique, I think, as a blonde ale, but it's just really got, I think, more flavor than a lot of blonde ales.
It has rapid evaporative properties.
Yeah,
as well.
Either that or I've got a thing going on with my cup. There may be a hole in it. I'm not completely sure about that. But no, it really is. The complexity of the flavor in this is, I think, more than what I'm used to with most blonde ales. So that makes me give it a big thumbs up, because I'm not looking for easy to drink, easy to enjoy. I'm looking for a beer experience. You know what I mean? I want to savor this. I don't want to. It's not about just easy to toss it back. Although this is a very drinkable beer, but there's flavor. This is what I'm getting to, and to me, that's the whole reason the craft beer scene is interesting, because it's about the experience and the flavors, and not just about like, oh yeah, those are cold, I'll drink one. You know what I mean? And it's to me, that's what makes it all kind of worthwhile. So, well, this is wonderful. We'll try something else coming up in the next segment, and we still have more to talk about, including, by the way, proof that whiskey is good for you. Yes, I'm not kidding, not making it up.
I can't wait to hear this.
We'll get to that coming up. It's Smoking and Toasting, all about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars. Welcome back. It's Smoking and Toasting. What happened over there?
Why does this plate smell like beer?
That's not a bad thing, by the way. That's not a bad thing at all.
When I popped open the beer, it kind of spritzed.
Yeah. All right. Well, that happens. So I wanted to ask you about this, Shawn, while we have you here. I've read a couple of articles that indicate that even though more hops has been grown and harvested over the past 5 to 10 years because of the explosion of craft beer and people becoming interested in hops, that apparently last summer in Europe was a less than expected harvest, and the articles that I had read said that could actually affect the taste of your favorite beer. Do you see that as being a thing, or is it one of those things where they try to scare you and make you feel like, oh no?
I wouldn't overthink it too much. I mean, we can blend hops, right? And the big guys definitely do blend hops, because it's a product that does change from year to year on a specific brand of hop. So the big guys will do hop tastings, they'll blend it, and we, to a certain level, can do the same. So,
and that's a lot like, I think.
So you keep it very consistent.
Yeah,
I was going to say, it's a lot like cigar tobacco, right?
Right.
You formulate a certain blend, and it's based on the tobacco from that year's harvest, and then next year's harvest, that same tobacco may be a little different. You may have to tinker with the blend a little bit to get it back to what you think that particular cigar is supposed to taste
anything
like.
That you,
and same here with hops, right?
Anything that you handcraft that you're going to make large batches of is going to. Whiskey does that, I mean, even down to the restaurant. I'm sure you get this in your restaurant where sometimes you don't get the same greens, or you don't get the same beef or whatever it is, that you have to kind of adapt and make it work.
Exactly right. Yeah.
Interesting. Well, maybe that's why the what was it, the Big and Bright from Carbach? Maybe that's why it isn't nearly as good as it used to be.
That is probably
It could be, but it could also just be cutting down on costs.
That's,
Cost inputs.
well, that's exactly what it was. We know that for a fact. Anheuser-Busch, when they bought them, said, yeah, don't use that much grapefruit.
Yeah. They also said, yeah, you don't need this lager anymore. That was one of the better lagers that I even knew of.
Oh, you're talking about
for the
the
lager,
sympathy
if
for the
you
lager.
remember?
Yeah. Yeah, it's completely gone from the lineup.
Yeah, they
now.
were like, we have a lager already.
Yeah. And it's not only easy to drink, but it's easy to enjoy.
Most important.
Most importantly. This is
Until it gets a little bit warm.
Yes. Oh, and then it's really, really awful. Yeah.
Then all those things flip
Yeah.
around.
This is a
bright
wonderful
and citrusy.
beer. Yeah, bright and citrusy, and it is called
Holy shit.
Ole Chit. So Ole like Ole, right?
Ole.
O-L-E.
Ole
And then Chit, C-H-I-T. Now, what does Chit actually mean? Is there a meaning to the word other than
Isn't that like a little piece of paper?
There
or
is a
something
chit,
like
yeah, but it's also in the there's a process as part of the malting. So for chit in that process. So
part of the molting?
where
Do platypuses molt?
No, but they do malt the grain. So
talking about the grain. Okay, gotcha.
yeah, so we had a little bit of back and forth to get that name approved, but
So
don't ask me why.
That's really interesting. Now, who had to sign off on it being okay?
Our wonderful friends up in Austin, the TABC, have to
okay.
do that, and to be honest, they were very, very good about it, and they said, well, in typical bureaucracy speech, we can't find a reason why we can't approve it. So good old double negatives.
Thanks.
Leave it to government, right?
Yeah.
Leave it to government.
That's like the best compliment ever. Like, hey, that's not bad.
I can't find a reason to say that that's bad. Therefore, I'm going to have to allow it. Yeah. This is a wonderful beer. So this is a Mexican lager, basically.
Thank you. Yeah. So it took an Aussie to come to Houston to create a craft Mexican lager.
Well, I was going to ask.
So this is one of the earliest Mexican lagers from a craft brewery that I ever even heard of. Because you've had this one out for a while now, right?
Yeah, it wasn't on our very original sheet, but it was soon thereafter.
I remember.
And is this one that is available year round?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yeah, this one, and it sells very, very well.
I remember this being
and
one of the
Bobby.
newer ones. I think the first time you guys were on the show, and it was. I think it was kind of a new one that just come out. I don't remember what year that was, but yeah, and it's been going strong ever since then. Huh?
It's been great. Yeah, we put some kaffir lime leaf in it just to give it a hint of lime.
That's what I'm getting
Great,
in there. I
beautiful,
like that
packed
a
full
lot.
of flavor. This traditional Mexican lager brewed with what did you call it? Kaffir lime.
Kaffir.
Kaffir,
I call
yeah.
it kaffir lime leaf. but
Kaffir lime.
Kaffir lime leaf.
I call
Has
it
a
Kefir Sutherland.
refreshing
That's what I
bite,
got.
sure to make you say "Ole cheat." That's good.
That's good.
I love it. All
I
right,
love
we're
being
gonna,
able to say that.
we got to take a break, and this is wonderful. And we'll be back with more to taste, including our Hatozaki small batch whiskey. Looking forward to trying this one. As you notice, I have not cleared the neck, so I need you to proceed with caution.
I will.
All right, we'll be right back. It's Smoking and Toasting. Welcome back. It is Smoking and Toasting. Our program is all about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars. We are celebrating show number 315 this week. And our guest is Shawn Hanrahan from Platypus Brewing right here in Houston, Texas. So you guys had, how many, beers you have on tap at the restaurant and brewery at one time?
We'll have 13 to 15.
13 to 15.
Depending on
a
where
nice-
the batches are at. So.
Yeah, it's a nice amount. That's a nice amount.
How many of those are core beers that you keep?
How many of those? We would have 7 to 8 cores.
7 to 8 that are there pretty much all the time. Yeah, very nice.
You know,
Well,
we joke about the fact that you sometimes unwrap these before.
yeah, but there's.
This one was kicking my butt a little bit.
Yeah, I saw you struggling with it a little over there, and so I apologize. I should have done that because the truth is, guys, I really do care about it.
Safety first.
Well, I do. I care about
Well,
it.
yeah, I mean, it's easy. Like the edges of this plastic that I have to tear off the
very
top
easy to get a paper or
can
plastic cut.
give you a paper cut.
Yep.
And then the neck of the bottle has some liquid in it, so when I go to pour it, there's a small chance that there's going to be spillage.
What he's getting at is that often when I bring in a bottle, I have taken the safety step of removing all that
time and
plastic
effort.
and removing some of the liquor from the neck of the bottle so that he won't be.
It's for safety
Safety
It's for
first.
safety, yeah.
Yeah.
It's OSHA is what it is. But no, I do care about you guys. I do. In fact, not only do I try to, most of the time at least, abide by the safety precautionary steps of smoking and toasting, but I also care about you because I'm giving you whiskey here today because ingredients derived from whiskey have been shown to have positive effects on a person's skin. And I'm not making this up. This is not, again, it's not one of those parody sites. This is for real. They say in this study that whiskey the benefits include minimizing puffiness and inflammation, taming redness, and protecting against free radical damage.
So I didn't have to go see the doctor after that. Oh, we're not talking about that.
Yeah, no, we're not talking about that specifically. Although that sounds like a pretty free radical damage thing to me, but maybe that's just me. No, scientists at Aberdeen's Robert Gordon University found that the whiskey-making byproduct pot ale, which is also used for animal feed, by the way, had antioxidant properties when applied to the skin. And I will say, when I drink whiskey, I very often do spill some onto my skin, a little bit on the hand, sometimes the chin. You just kind of rub it in,
Right? I can see that. And also, like, I prefer to antioxidize the inside.
Yeah, exactly. That's important, too. The researchers think this is the first study of its kind to use whiskey byproducts to examine cellular antioxidant capacity. But it's a pretty big breakthrough. Whiskey can be good for your skin.
So you got whiskey and you got rubbing whiskey.
Yeah, that's right. And if you get pulled over, you can all say, "No, officer, I was treating my skin.
I was cleaning a wound.
That's not my pores. That's the exactly.
Now, is there any surprise this came out of Aberdeen? A study out of Aberdeen.
Right, exactly. You gotta love that, right? All right, we're not drinking whiskey from Scotland today, though. We're drinking whiskey from Japan. Ian, you are of all of us on the show, I think, probably the foremost whiskey expert. What are you getting on the nose there?
I don't know that I call
For
myself a whiskey
Hatozaki?
expert, but I'm going to go ahead and leave that. So the nose is very, very malt, round, soft malt.
Yes, it's very malty.
Kind of vanilla layered over top of it, and a little creaminess going on.
So-
Almost a
Other than the fact that it obviously originates from Japan, are there characteristics to Japanese whiskey, kind of like there are characteristics to Scotch, for example, or there's characteristics to
and the
Irish whiskey?
peatiness is so good.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
it's so soft and delicate. So okay, so those words I just used, the delicate nature of whiskey. The Japanese whiskeys, I think, kind of excel at that side of things.
At that
they are very detail oriented,
Delicate,
in their whiskey, and
and
it really comes across in a whiskey. And this right here
I was
has I think a near perfect balance.
I was not expecting the peatiness. That was a surprise to me, but it is very nicely balanced. There's a lot of it there, but it still doesn't kind of sock you in the face like some like a
doesn't sock you
Lafroig
in the
or something.
face?
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, but I'm Jim. Thank you. But no, seriously, it's not as pronounced as like if you're talking about a Lafroig or something like that, right?
No. Lafroig, like we would have all smelled it as soon as I opened the bottle.
Mm-hmm.
Like everyone would have, like half of us would have gone, it smells like Band-Aids and dirt. But
And Ian would have said, "I want some."
and the peaty note has been described as medicinal, like that kind of when you walk into the stark white doctor's office kind of
Right,
thing.
right.
But that's not necessarily a bad thing either. There's certain notes people really enjoy. This right here has such a nice, delicate balance of all those things. The vanilla on the back end is so fun. I don't usually find that much vanilla when you have something with this much peat in it as well.
Right, absolutely.
And it's an interesting contrast. There's also a little bit of pepper towards the back too that I'm finding
Yes,
that
yes, I've
just
got a little of that on the
has a
palate
little bit
now.
of a kiss of that, and then this really beautiful warmth that comes up a little later. This is a really fun whiskey. I think Japanese whiskey in general, if you haven't tried it, if you like the more delicate side of whiskey most of the time, that's going to be it. Now, it's not that that's what they make all the time, but that they excel at this kind of super
At this
balanced,
sort of style,
like really precision engineered whiskey, if you will.
About a $60 bottle.
Yeah. I would say worth it. It's
Yeah.
delicious.
Yeah, it's
The aftertaste it leaves is fantastic.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. I also noticed that it's very light colored, very like a
very
straw
pale
color.
straw.
Mhm.
Very pale straw.
Which surprised me a little, but
Let's see what it says
especially
on
for
here.
it to be this
The
peaty.
Hatozaki Lighthouse, the oldest stone lighthouse in Japan, has been a guide for sailors navigating turbulent waters before the port of Akashi. Yes, since 1620. A little bit of history on that one. It's a symbol of dependability, openness to the wider world, and the trade, which enables the exchange of goods and ideas. We chose this lighthouse, which stands so close to our distillery, as the perfect icon to represent our whiskey. It's interesting because you also get that. It pops into my head too, just talking about Japan being the island. You also get a little of that saltiness that you
Yes,
get.
there is. Well, but you get a little bit of that in Scotch whiskey
Yes,
as well.
yes.
That sort of seaside vibe.
Especially the Ela and the and the Campbelltown and things like that. They're very close.
But I really do enjoy this. I find that I still struggle a little bit with the big peaty scotches. I can drink a little bit of them and enjoy it, but it's not something that I find I often would choose.
You're just not
when I
looking
go
at
to
it
the bar.
right. It's
But
easy. You just pick it up and drink it, so it's easy to drink.
Easy to drink and easy
And
to
then
enjoy, I bet.
You just say, "Wow, that was good." See, it's easy to enjoy.
Yeah.
We have a theme going on today.
Well, and it just points out the stupidity of that slogan because you can apply it to anything,
I love the
unless it's horrible.
the
all about
artwork on this
lifestyle.
bottle is real beautiful too. You can see it's a representation of the sea crashing against the shore with the lighthouse in the background. It's actually really pretty.
Hatozaki is a lighthouse in Japan.
Yes.
That's what you were saying from reading that. No, I enjoy this. To me, this just sort of hint of peatiness is perfect for kind of where I'm at on the pedometer. You know what I mean?
The pedometer.
Yeah.
Nice. That could mean different
me
things
see.
in different places.
Let me
be careful with that.
Let me repronounce it the pedometer, not the pedometer. Yeah, let's just make that clarification here on the program.
It's all about emphasis on the right syllable, isn't it?
Yeah. What did they say about the correct emphasis on
Yeah,
the
on the right
proper syllable?
syllable.
That's
Yeah.
it, the syllable.
It's slightly overproofed at 46%.
Yeah, but
So-
it's a small batch. I think it's really good. I'm going to enjoy a little more of this here. I think in the segment. This is pretty darn good.
Agreed.
Pretty darn good. Let me ask you about Platypus Brewing. So you're at a position now where you got a very healthy business at your restaurant and brewery. People coming in. You guys stay fairly busy, right?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
So and you're now in
Thankfully.
not only the beer and wine shops, but in most of the major grocery store chains and stuff in the greater Houston area. What's next? Do you look to push beyond Houston? And I have a second question too, but let me ask you that one first.
Okay. Yeah, in terms of that, look, for right now, we're exploring opportunities in the greater Houston area. So that we just had a meeting as recently as boring as this is in a couple of weeks ago with the partners to talk
As boring
about,
as this is?
No, gosh, as boring as talking about strategy and so forth.
But I find that stuff interesting because with craft beer becoming such a hyper local phenomenon, I'm curious about, okay, how do you get, when you get to the point where you go, okay, let's take the next step. What does that even look like in today's classic environment for craft beer?
Yeah, look, well, I can certainly answer that in terms of what it means for Platypus. And as much as we're pushing with craft beer, again, for us, it's the bigger experience and it's around the retail. So having the restaurant and the brewery all melded together, and that's what we're going to focus on. Distribution for us is important, being in the stores, but in terms of where we feel we can push forward for our brand is certainly in that what we would call the retail space. So the restaurant and bar and so forth. So we're looking around and talking as a partnership group as to what's next for us in this greater area. Of course, my original vision was always to have an international aspect to Platypus Brewing.
Sure.
Branding's important. Let's face it. We spoke about Chevys and beers that are talking about lifestyle, and it's anything
Sure,
but
absolutely.
the actual product, right? So branding is important. And so for me, it was always about let's build a brand that can be, recognizable as it's uniquely Australian, and we can do that in an international context. So it's something that I put my toes in the water pre-COVID, and COVID sort of smacked that out of the room.
It did that with a lot of things.
With a lot of things, so we had to sort of bring everything back and focus on that, and that's what we're doing. And now we can start to move forward again.
Would you?
But there's a lot of breweries too that like because of the COVID thing, a lot of breweries actually didn't survive the COVID thing. So I think it kind of. It's a harsh way to put it, but it kind of flushed the waters a little bit too, and left a little more space, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's still a busy space, and as we mentioned earlier, hyper local and having different representations of the industry. So having a neighbourhood pub versus a restaurant and brewery model, there's still a lot of room for that, I think, and if done properly, and there's so many good products and brewers around town and companies that do that well. So in terms of where do I see the industry, I don't see it fragment too much, but I do see some specialisation in neighbourhood pubs versus retail. What are you good at? Let's go back to that. Focus on that.
Focus on that in the different things you're offering at the pub location.
Some places have a destination brewery, like your place with the restaurant and everything like that. Some places have a tap room, that opens up and people can go hang out, and the brewery is built to make more beer than have tap room, so to speak.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Now, let me ask you this: would you ever consider, now that you're established, in the United States, would you ever consider opening a sort of sister brew pub and brewery and restaurant in Brisbane?
I think that would be the ultimate for me.
So that you've got like you talk about with your beer, you've got the Australia. What is the saying on the beer?
Oh, it's brewed with Texas heart and Australian soul.
Right. So you would that resonate in Australia? Do you think?
I think it absolutely would, and specifically where it would is, I've got so much respect for the US craft brewing industry, and it's truly the leader in craft brewing.
It really is great because Germany and Belgium, they really had it all for a while, and now they're taking their cues from the American craft beer scene.
That's right.
We've pushed the entire, as United States have pushed the entire industry. Like even Guinness. Makes an American style ale right now. What does that say? Guinness has been around for ever.
A long time. But I think if we have the Aussie, and if we had the Aussie in Australia, but we had that US component to it, that again provides that level of uniqueness where you can be using the US hops and whatnot.
Texas is perceived as being an interesting and fascinating place. I know by people in the UK. I would assume that carries over to Australia. Is there some curiosity about Texas there?
Yeah, there's very much there's a closeness actually between cultures of Australia and Texas because of the laid back, work hard, get it done, but without all of the emotion
and
around it.
And then let's party.
Yeah, that's right. Whereas, I'm not sure you could say that across all 50 states here. But
when you need your Texas spokesman, I do own a hat and boots.
Go for it.
And I can ham up the Texas accent.
Oh, yeah. You can totally do that.
They would truly like.
Now, let me ask you this. I've always wanted to ask someone who really is from or understands Australia this question. This whole Crocodile Dundee thing, that was just BS, right? That is not. That's just about as representative of Australia as I don't know, J.R. Ewing was of Texas.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay, I thought so.
Wonderful sales pitch for our country, actually, because it sort of put us on the map in terms of tourism. So it was very good from that perspective.
Who wouldn't want to do a walkabout, right?
Yeah, but to see those types of characters up there, you'll find one or two in the woodwork, but no, it's obviously a bit of Hollywood on that one.
Yeah, that's what I figured. Well, I'm really enjoying this whiskey.
It's quite good.
It really is quite good, and I think at its price point, I think lives up to what it costs. I think, in fact, I'm noticing this evaporation technique that you were mentioning earlier is striking me once again. Let it not be said that we don't combat evaporation to the best of our ability.
Best we can
on Smoking and Toasting. What do you see as the future as craft beer begins to move into its next phase. So we had the explosion phase, we had the IPA phase where everybody had to make an IPA, and by the way, I would say bless them for that. Ian would probably grumble about it.
Too many IPAs out there.
Yeah, it's only too many in the case that it's keeping you from your other beers.
You want to make me happy? Brew like 4 different barley wines, about 3 different porters, and 2 IPAs.
Okay.
And a stout.
All right, I'll give you 3. I'll give you 3.5 IPAs, and we'll balance this out.
bargaining here.
We'll bargain
We're
on this.
bartering.
No, but seriously, IPA is an incredibly popular style of craft beer. That's the reason there are so many.
You started a brewery.
It'd be all IPAs and barley wines.
That's right.
People would be like, "Do you have a blonde ale?" No.
No. Get out.
Do you have a porter? No. IPAs and barley wines. Seriously, we should totally get together and have Platypus do a smoking and toasting IPA and a smoking and toasting barley wine. And we could put.
Did you see the look on his face when he said barley wine? He's like, I don't know how we do that.
But I was thinking, we work it out, and then we could like superimpose your head on the platypus on the can.
There we go.
See, wouldn't
That
that,
would
be
be
cool?
amazing.
Ian the platypus.
And get
I
people
like
to
that.
spot the difference.
Absolutely love it. All right, we are going to take a break. Drinking News is right around the corner. Remember, our Drinking News teaser headline was "Please stand by for a message from the president." So we have that coming up. And as if all of that weren't enough, we now have the specialty brew coming from Platypus. So I'm very, very excited about getting into this. And I heard, Ian, not for nothing, but I heard it might be an IPA. I'm excited. We'll be right back. It's Smoking and Toasting.
Can you not see your neighbor's mercy?
Welcome back. It is Smoking and Toasting. Our program is all about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars. We are very excited to already be at show number 315, and we will remind you that since that is halfway to 333, our 333rd show is when we're going to do our it'll be the second really big anniversary.
It's going to be madness.
Celebration. Yeah, we did this on the 100th show. We invited everyone on who'd ever been on the show up until that time, and we wound up going like almost 4.5 hours, and there were many Ubers ordered to get people home. Because what happened is everybody came and they brought cigars
Stuff.
and they brought whiskey and they bought rum and they bought beers and everybody just had great fun, just sort of trading with each other and sampling the other's wares.
Well,
and it was just
remember we had the long
pandemonium.
table set up.
Yeah.
And it was just like we would start talking, and then as people just wanted to move on, and someone else would come sit down, and then they would be part of the conversation. It just was this ever-evolving thing. It was so fun.
It really was, and it was pretty interesting up until I think the last hour when it sort of devolved into a discussion about tap lines and how to keep them clean and
Mark
deliver them.
Nichols,
Yeah,
and Jeremiah
and Jeremiah Butler from B&B.
Butler. Yeah, they were going on for a while.
About tap lines.
Do you know Mark Nichols by any chance?
That's when I feel like we maybe lost the casual consumer.
He has a company called Quality Draft. He cleans draft lines and stuff like that.
Which somebody has to do, right?
Yeah,
absolutely. The worst thing in the world, and because I used to DJ in clubs, right? The worst thing in the world is that first diet soda when they haven't cleared out the lines.
The
horrible
bad tap line.
Horrible. And I can only imagine the beer would be the same thing. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, unbeknownst to me or anyone else, as to why this segment has actually become the most popular segment on the Smoking and Toasting program, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for Drinking News.
Drinking news, drinking news. Now it's time for drinking news. Drinking news, drinking news. Now it's time for drinking news. A Florida man with one arm said he had a gator for a pet. When asked about his absent arm, he said,
Something like,
a gator carried it in the swamp.
oh, no, that's not what he said. See,
drinking news, drinking news. Now it's time for drinking news.
we've totally botched this one, and that's my fault.
You want to start that one again?
Let's do it again.
Okay.
Yes. All right.
A Florida
Wait.
man.
Before you do, hold on. Will you do something for us?
Absolutely. Well, hang on.
When I give you the cue, would you just say in your best voice, I had to take my gator to the vet. Can you do that?
I can do that.
All right, let's do it.
A Florida man with one arm said he had a gator for a pet. When asked about his absent arm, he said,
Well, I had to take my gator to the vet.
drinking
There we
news.
go. There we go.
Drinking
Now we
news.
got it.
Now it's time for drinking news.
Cheers, y'all. All right, see, that was actually worth waiting
That was
for, right?
awesome.
Yeah, I queued up the wrong one initially, but that's okay.
My
This was-
blessed Floridian accent.
I like the gator carried it into the swamp. That was pretty funny.
Well, if you remember, that was one specific version of the song that we did because of a specific story. I don't even remember now. All right, before we get into today's drinking news story, I'd like to point out that this could happen to anybody, at least if they've had
it
enough.
could happen to you.
Yeah, at least if you've had enough to drink. I'm sure that there are plenty of people who've had more than their share, have looked at another person in the bar and thought, wow, they're hot. And then, of course, woke up the next morning realizing
I
that
thought, wow.
beer goggles is a very
They're
real
not.
thing. Yeah, I've never chewed my arm off in order to make a clean coyote ugly getaway, but I'd be lying if I said that I've never been in a situation where I thought about it. So, listen, it could be something really simple. Maybe you, like me, have had enough to drink at a certain point that you've thought to yourself, you know what would be really awesome? A late night meal at the Waffle House.
Oh, I've been
Yeah,
there.
exactly. That's what I'm talking about. And who among us has not experienced waking up and looking at your phone to discover that you committed one of the worst drunk offenses possible?
Oh, no. you didn't-
Texting your ex to see if they wanted to hook up. But today's drinking news story may even top those. It involves aliens,
Well, okay, we're off to a strong start.
dragons,
We're, all right.
the Space Force, and of course, a Florida man.
A Florida man.
Yep, that's right. A Florida man from Riviera Beach had enough to drink that he became convinced that he had been given a mission from the President of the United States. That's right. Apparently, President Joe Biden had a job he needed done that was so important that he couldn't entrust it to a member of his staff or to the vice president or to the FBI or the CIA or anyone from Homeland Security. Instead, he apparently reached out to 29-year-old Corey Johnson of Florida.
Listen, man, when you have a job to get done, and it needs to get done right, you got to know the right man to push the button.
Mm-hmm.
And he has to know which button to push.
And he
that
has to be from
apparently is
Florida.
Mr. Johnson.
He has to be from Florida. So apparently the president reached out to him by speaking to him in his mind and gave him very specific instructions. Johnson then stole a pickup truck and drove it from Riviera Beach to the Space Force headquarters at Patrick Space Force Base in Brevard County near the Kennedy Space Center. When Johnson tried to get on the base, he was stopped by Space Force security, because of course he was. But he told them he was on a mission from the White House.
It's cool, man.
Yeah, it's cool. He claimed, wait for it, that the president had told him in his mind that he needed to take the vehicle and warn government officials of a serious problem. That there were United States aliens fighting Chinese dragons, and the Space Force needed to do something about it, and pronto.
Well, yeah, I mean, who else will?
Right, exactly. I'm not really sure what aliens you would consider to be U.S. aliens. I'm thinking maybe, Dr. Phil or the megachurch pastor Joel Osteen or, that Flo chick from the commercials for Progressive Insurance. I've been suspicious of her for a very long time.
What
by the
about
way.
Mistress Cleo?
Yeah, exactly. But wherever they come from, they were locked in a very serious form of mortal combat with Chinese dragons. And we all know what the Chinese have done with weather balloons. Imagine the hell they would unleash with dragons. We all know, of course, dragons can be very ferocious. Corey Johnson was arrested and charged with grand theft of a motor vehicle.
After all that.
Reporting live from Florida, where wait a minute. I'm getting a message in my head from President Biden.
Oh, no.
He wants me to steal a car. He wants me to drive to Walgreens and pick him up a bottle of Geritol and some stool softeners and to deliver them to the White House before Murder, She Wrote is over. I got to get busy, folks. My name is Cruz, and that is your...
Drinking news, drinking news. That's our time for drinking news.
Cheers, y'all. I love that last chord, by the way. What is the last chord?
The G7.
The G7. Okay. That explains it. I love the seventh chords.
Actually, I'm sorry. I'm thinking guitar. It's C7. My
It's
fault, 'cause
C7.
I'm
Okay.
a-
See,
I'm a
I
fourth.
don't know anything about the ukulele. I know.
I'm up by a fourth.
Yeah, I
On
know how
guitar,
to-
it's a G7 shape. So.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. I'm glad you understand all of that because somebody has to. All right. So we're here with a man who understands beer now, and he is the founder and proprietor of Platypus Brewing, a really cool craft brewery right here in our hometown of Houston, Texas. And before we sample this, is there any way? I know that state laws are weird when it comes to alcohol, and different states are different. Yeah, crazy. But is there any way we could get to the place where if someone, let's say in California, who hears the show and thinks, I really want to try that Bobby Dazzler or whatever, could literally go onto your website and order it and have it shipped? You can't do that right now based on state laws, right?
That's correct. And then if you, as soon as you cross state lines, you need to have a Californian distributor, and then TTB gets involved, which is the federal regulator, because you're crossing state lines. So it gets rather. You can do a lot in this wonderful free country, except alcohol is incredibly regulated at all levels, and tobacco, as you guys would know. So, yeah, TTB, what's it stand for? It's a Trade and something bureau, but it's basically tobacco and firearms and alcohol, because it's important to put those three in the same sentence.
If you're smoking tobacco and drinking alcohol, maybe firearms should be handled by somebody else. I'm just saying, I'm just saying maybe those don't all go together.
Well,
but
there goes my gun cleaning night.
Exactly. Exactly.
I'm not actually
but
joking.
wouldn't it be great though? I know there's services like there's Tavor, for example, where you can buy beers that are featured on their app, and they're from different states and different places. I don't know how they obviously have figured out a way to get around those state laws, or they've already been shut down. But the point is, like, I don't know why these laws have to be so restrictive. Actually, I do know. It's about the distributors, isn't it?
It's all about distribution.
Yeah.
If it doesn't go through a distributor's hands, then that's money that the distributor will not make off of you.
Right.
Correct.
But I can come to your brewery and I can buy and take home a 6-pack directly from you.
That is
And there's
correct.
no distributor involved there.
That's
correct?
new, though. That's
You're
what?
right. That only happened during COVID.
Yeah,
right?
but not for me. Under the license I've had since I've been open, I've always sold beer to go. So all that, what the guild and everyone did about getting these to-go laws was only for certain classes of licenses.
Interesting.
But before that,
Didn't impact
I know Brock had fought long and hard, especially
From
to,
St. Arnold,
to
yeah.
be able to go to the brewery and buy beer and take it out, which you couldn't do before. Because remember, like 10 years ago, if you went to a brewery, you got to sample it there, and you didn't get to take it home. Was that
Right.
10 years ago, or was that a little longer?
Yeah, I mean, I think back when
it wasn't that long ago.
and you had to buy a token. You couldn't actually have exchange
Right.
Right.
money. It was just
It's
this.
so weird. I remember.
And in
Very
some instances, you could buy a growler, but you
Right.
couldn't. Like, they couldn't distribute their beer there. Like, you couldn't buy a 6-pack because that had to go through a distributor and then through a store.
I remember back in the olden days, back when the Dallas Cowboys used to make it to the playoffs.
Oh.
So you can tell it's been a while, right?
Like the
No,
90s,
no,
right?
I know they went this year, but it didn't count because they didn't win. So back in that day, right? A friend had playoff tickets for the Cowboys. He invited me to come up to Dallas and go to the game with him, and I was very excited. We went. So we show up. It was a noon game, right? So we show up. We're in the parking lot. It's like 11 o'clock.
So you went to a nooner
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
a friend.
Right.
Okay.
And so the guy says, "Hey, you want to get a beer?" I'm like, "We can't. It's Texas. They can't sell beer until noon." He goes, "Oh, no. Watch this." We go over to one of these booths out there in the parking lot, right? And he says, "You can't buy a beer." But he then gave him like $5 or $7 or whatever it was for a stick of celery, and they gave him a beer for free. That's just a workaround the liquor laws because they're so weird.
I've seen bars open in this town that would operate under the complete assumption that you're paying for a beer, even though they have to actually give it to you.
Yeah.
So they would, whenever you go up to the bar, before they had their official license or whatever, you go up to the bar and you would order a beer, and they would suggest a donation amount for the beer.
Oh,
I've seen bars operate like that for years.
in Vermont, when I lived up in Massachusetts, went up to Vermont for the weekend with some friends, went out to a Mexican restaurant and bar, sitting in the bar before we ate, and I went over and ordered a tequila and a beer. And they bring it to me. I'm standing at the bar. He hands me the tequila, and I'm like, can I have the beer? He goes, not until you finish the tequila. It's state law. They can't give you 2 drinks, at least at that time. It may have changed. They
Nuts.
could not give you 2 drinks at one time. So I had to literally, and I was planning to sip the tequila, not shoot it, right? So I had to basically throw that tequila back in order to get my
And that
beer.
sucks because shooting anything pretty much sucks.
It does. It absolutely does. It absolutely does. Except for if you're Mark Nichols and you're a guest on our show and you poke a hole in the bottom of the beer can while we're discussing something he didn't find particularly interesting, and you chug the whole
just
thing right
shotgun
on
the beer.
camera. Yeah,
Shotgun.
yeah,
Nice
yeah.
one.
That totally works. Speaking of beer, we have moved to the IPA, and this is so. You're telling me this is not a full-time beer in your line, is that right?
That's correct. We bring this out in the fall, I guess you call it, autumn, winter time.
Right.
And yes, this is the one we currently have in the stores. So it's called.
Ian, I see you had a little problem with your cup there once again.
Yeah, it's just there's a mess
So-
everywhere here, isn't there?
You know how I complain about IPAs sometimes being a little too pine coney?
Well, this one's celebrating the pininess.
This
the
one is
name
pine
of this
coney.
is Kiss My Pining.
It is, however, sweet up front
Yep.
and balanced. And the pine coney thing is not stuck in my teeth.
It kind of works, right? No, but
Well,
that's
I'm
the thing.
glad.
That's the thing about it being balanced.
There's some West Coast ones out there a few years back that were like, oh, come on.
Yeah, it's like eating the pine tree in front of your grandma's yard or something,
Right.
you know. But no, this is not that way at all. Now it is very piney, but it's in a very balanced kind of way, and I'm curious as to what do you do in order to balance that, because Ian's right. Some of the extremely piney IPAs just kind of
No balance.
yeah, they're not balanced at all. How did you figure out the balance that you achieved?
Yeah, so it's just through balancing the hops in terms of the pine cone type thing. So you need to select a hop profile and the timing that you're putting these things in, and balance those hops with the malt backbone that you have in there. So it's you can put too much of a Simcoe in there, for example, and you get a whole punch there.
Simcoe's a pretty funky hop.
It is, and so you just
It's
balance
good.
it.
But yeah, I know that it seemed like during the IPA explosion, which is what I like to call it, it seemed like there was this period of time where breweries were all trying to out-hop each other.
Yep.
I can make mine hoppier than yours. Oh, I can make mine hoppier than yours. And not all of those were good beers.
No,
You
a
know?
lot of them were quite bad.
And
Yeah.
the buzzword was dank. I mean,
Right.
this
And
was
I like a little bit of dank in my
yeah,
life.
but dank is a specific thing, and dank can be good.
But to me, it was a bit overdone. But that's the wonderful thing about craft brewing is you've got a bunch of guys and gals out there testing the boundaries of this thing and then
Right.
bringing it back to a balance. So,
Shawn, what is your most popular beer that is not available year-round? Or at least not in stores?
most popular beer, it does tend to change.
Yeah.
So, for example, we have a coffee porter on right now. So it's very seasonal, and we use a local coffee shop there, and it's all cold brewed and put in there. So
nice.
that's called Stars at Night. That's a very, very popular beer. And we have a blackberry hazy IPA, which
A blackberry hazy. That does sound good, doesn't
yeah,
it?
it's really good. So that's not year round, of course. These are just things that we bring in at certain times of the year and the different types of seasons.
So this Kiss My Piney is seasonal, you said.
This will be seasonal. So it's typically around November, December. I'll bring that out.
Okay, so what replaces this one when it goes away?
In about a week's time, a week and a half's time, I'll have the Kolsch. So the Stella Ella Kolsch, which is that time
And
of
I've
year.
had that. That's a wonderful beer.
Yeah, it's just nice.
It's great for the summertime too. Yeah.
Good Aussie hop
Which,
again, so-
guys, it's coming. Summertime is on the way. I'm telling you, we're gonna get there. I promise.
I mean, I woke up, it was 56 degrees. When I got here, it was 80 degrees in my truck.
Yeah, and when you leave, it'll be like 13. So that's Texas for you. All right, we are going to take a break, and we'll be back to wrap up the show. But, man, thank you so much, Shawn, for being on the program today. This has been great fun, and we love your beers, and we want you to come back anytime you want to.
Thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you,
All
gents.
right, we'll be right back at Smoking and Toasting.
That's 'cause I'm cleaning too. I love you like I know you forever.
Welcome back. It is Smoking and Toasting. Our program is all about craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars. Getting ready, by the way, we talked about this a little bit last week. We are getting closer and closer to our Smoking and Toasting debut as a syndicated radio program on radio stations all over the country. So we're very excited about this. It's coming. We'll give you more details probably in about a week or so. So speaking of a week from now, by the way, on next week's show, Abby Heim joins us. She is with an organization called Pink Boots. And if I understand this correctly, she'll correct us, but Pink Boots is all about women in craft beer. And that is going to be something that Abby will be talking about with us. She'll be sharing it with us, and we'll all be sharing some pretty interesting craft beer on the program as well. So looking forward to that. I don't know Abby that well, but I do know her parents. So and they're super cool.
I absolutely love that we're going to pull someone on the show. We're not exactly sure what they do.
Yeah,
but that's okay.
I love it.
That's fun.
No, it's okay. You know, and it's not like we just had that damn Chris Hart guy back again. You know, so there's that. I want to say a big thank you to Shawn Hanrahan. First of all, thank you for being on the show. But secondly, thank you for really doing something different with your craft brewery. I mean, you guys are pretty unique as the breweries go here. It's not that you're more of this or more of that. You just kind of have your own like vibe and image, and obviously it's the whole Australia Texas thing. But that is not. It's not a gimmick because the beer's really good. That's the thing.
Thank you very much.
If the beer's really good, then it becomes just part of your marketing. But I'm looking at what.
And the food is so good.
Oh, the food is great. Yeah, the food is
so
absolutely
good.
great. I'm just looking at the platypus. I'm going, imagine Ian's face right there. How much fun that would be. People would be buying that beer just like, well, I got to try this, you know?
And then we make the bobbleheads.
Yeah, see? The platypus body, Ian head, bobblehead. I love it.
Well, I mean, it could be interchangeable, you know?
I get you. I'm feeling you. No, seriously, thank you, Shawn, so much for coming on. Now, when people come to your location, and you are on Washington Ave in Houston, when people come to your location, what is the one thing that they've got to try before they leave?
The one thing they have to try before they leave.
Yeah. If you could have every customer make sure they try this one thing, what would it be?
All right. Well, let's just depart from the beer for a second and go into the food. I think they need to try a meat pie. It's a quintessential Australian delicacy, which is think of a hot dog in the US to sport like a baseball or a football.
Right.
Meat pie is a rugby or a football.
So people go to rugby games and they eat a meat pie.
Yeah, beer in one hand,
gosh.
meat pie in the other. Yeah,
I love that.
So, like hot dogs, then, do they also have like really, really, really good versions of it? And then also like, you know, sometimes there's dollar hot dog night.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
and while
flavors.
that's something you should definitely try, it's not good hot dogs.
There was one, I forget the name of it. It's the John Candy. It was an old John Candy movie where he's like staying in some log cabin thing or something away on a resort, and the raccoons break into the trash and they start eating the trash and they find hot dogs, and it's subtitled, and the raccoons are like, "Are you going to eat the hot dog?" And he goes, "No, it's lips and buttholes."
And each state in Australia has its own claim on who has the best meat pie.
Who has the best meat pie? Oh, interesting. Yeah. So it's regionally.
So it is very similar to like the hot dog around here because they're different.
By the way, I love hot dogs. I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care. I just love them. But meat pie sounds
I broke
good.
down and did hot dogs on the grill for the game.
So you got meat pie available at your restaurant?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
All right. What's the best beer with the meat pie?
Oh, for me, it's the Piney. I'm enjoying the Piney right now, but
it's really good beer.
I think even a nice stout, because we we have a steak and ale pie as well, so it has a little bit of the beer in it. So.
Ooh, I'm digging that, and
Sold.
that would totally go with the stout. Yeah. Well, thank you again so much, Shawn, for being on the program. It has been a pleasure, not only drinking your beer but having you on. It's been great fun,
guys.
And thank you, and keep doing what you're doing, and keep surprising us with fun new combinations of the Aussie and the Texan, because what a great combo that is. Thank you guys for being here. Thanks to Jong of the Wheels of Steel, Adam in the Sky, our producer. Thank you, everyone involved. Ian, my friend, I'll see you next week.
You sir rock.
Cheers, y'all.
It's alright when it's okay. Yeah, you never listen to what anybody else says. Such a stuff.